Hi, everybody. So I've been getting a lot of questions in the chat and through email and in classes, and everybody wants to know, how do I contact my higher self like you do? So I brought Ben on today. We're having a few technical difficulties, so one of us is going to be muted at all times. And anyway, we want to go ahead and talk about how Ben actually came up with, like, he got inspired to go ahead and start to talk to his higher self, the classes that he took, his process. And then he's going to talk about the class he actually created so that you can talk to your higher self. So we're going to do those things today, and I hope you enjoy. Here we go. So first thing is I'm going to ask Ben about his higher self journey.
That is a loaded question. Great question, yet loaded question. I'm going to be honest with you. My journey has been a fairly difficult one, but I don't want people to understand that that means theirs will be difficult. Just a few moments ago, actually, before we started recording, Honey was talking about how it's kind of sped up. Everything's kind of sped up. And I feel that that's absolutely accurate. If you do want to look at time as being linear, which as human beings tend to do, I mean, we'll do it for a moment, time seems to go by quicker. I was talking to my grandfather about it, and he's like, when I was young, time went by slowly, but now it's like I blink and I'm all of a sudden old. And in a way, that's accurate. In a way, which I won't explain the details about that exactly right now, but just know that there's also parts of it that are not accurate. I guess I should say if you spend time in high is good, time does tend to feel like it's going at a slower rate because you're experiencing it more, I guess. So to kind of explain my process, I kind of found my higher self when I was doing a cleanse, I'll say, and I was on this space where everything kind of sucked. I Actually, no, I'm going to get into the full details of it. You guys are going to hear my testimony here. It's a little intense. There was this point in my past where my grandmother and my mother were speaking to a person who communicates with spirit guides, and they misunderstood something that she said. She said, in their way, in their perspective, she said that they're not going to make it this round of ascension. But that back then, they had no idea what that meant at all. They thought that that meant that their last life on Earth was this life, and they never get to come back, or they never get to reincarnate, or I don't know, some scary crap that wasn't real. But I believed it, and I called her up and I was like, "Hey, lady, what did you mean?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, all of what they heard was absolutely not true." And so I was like, "Well, what do we do? How do I fix? How do I change? How do I grow?" And the first thing that came to my mind was, let's start with food, which today, if you think about the way that the energetics of growing is, it's about 10% food and 90% mindset and healing, right? But back then it wasn't. I didn't know that. So I went on this pretty intense, and I'm talking almost, if you were to try it today, you probably wouldn't even get close to even, attempting it, but I did it. And 3 weeks into it, I started feeling incredible, mind blowing. My mind was going so quickly. I was reading this book back then, and it took me probably 7 months to get through 3/4 of it. And I'm a pretty quick reader. I was. And then I stopped because I was just like, oh, this is taking so long and I can't do it anymore. And then I did this cleanse, and at the end of the cleanse, I was able to finish the last fourth, with which, if history proves itself, it would have taken me months to do it. I finished it in 2 hours. Incredible book, but I couldn't do it. I was too overwhelmed and too overloaded and too burdened by toxins and whatever was my issue. And in that moment, I was like, what am I going to do? And I received messages from my higher self, but I wasn't really clear. I didn't really understand the messages. I didn't really notice what was happening, and I wasn't really interpreting them correctly. Or in this point, I had to interpret them versus now they just come clearly. And I wasn't really getting what I was supposed to do clearly. So I was browsing around on YouTube trying to figure out a better way. And I had come across a bunch of different material, we'll say, that kind of instructs you on how to better communicate with your higher self. And people kept saying, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go forward with it. And I found a training. And in this case, this training said the one piece of information that you need to understand is that in stillness, in quiet, is how you hear your higher self. And that, I think, was the most important piece for me because my mind was not still and was not quiet, no matter what I did. And I finally got to this realization where it was in stillness and in quiet that I was able to hear my higher self. Whereas before it was always prove to me this or my mind racing, and they call it mind chatter, I guess. And my mind was just racing, 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 racing. And I finally found the ability to still my mind. Sad story was it took me about 7 months, I guess. But I got it. I finally got it. Now, again, being as how I just spoke a few moments ago, that time is kind of sped up. My 7 months is more like 7 minutes now, or 7 seconds, really. It's very quick, and I have taught so many people now to connect to their higher self, and walked with them on their journey. I'm talking many thousands, and usually it's a day or an hour before that person's in a space where they can connect. Whereas, like I said, with mine, it was many months. I want to stop because along this journey for me, I did notice one really important thing that helped me immensely, and that was a lot of people. And I don't want to devalue healing and growing. I don't. That's primary here, honestly. But I also don't want you to believe that that's the only thing you can do, because that kind of overwhelmed me when I first started like really deeply digging into who I was and learning about the non-truths that I had installed, or I had let people install into me. I got really overwhelmed with how I had to heal everything. It's like, that's just a billion limiting beliefs. I'm never going to get through this. This is garbage. Let's quit. And that was one of my biggest, issues, my biggest downfalls or speed bumps, I guess. And so I was in my living room and I was getting guidance on different things. And the one that stuck out the loudest, like screamed at me. My higher self was like, you don't only have to tune in to healing limiting beliefs to heal a limiting belief. You can tune into other things. And then I was like, give me an example. And he's like, well, what interests you? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. Like, death's kind of interesting. Not death in and of itself, but like what happens when we die. That's kind of interesting to me. And so he's like, let's do death. And so I did the truths about death. And I actually made a video about it. And this was one of my first attempts at making a video. It didn't look very good, but it was cool. And then he's like, what else interests you? And I was like, oh, karma. What is karma really? And it's not what you think. Hint, maybe one day I'll take a look at what karma is when and if you get to connect or want to connect. And then I also tuned into things like the sun and the moon and planets and stars and trees, and that is exciting. Plants and trees are exciting, and animals. So keeping that in mind, because a lot of my journey was resisting wanting to heal. Like, that's all I had to do. That's all I could do. And I was like, this is not good. I don't want to do this all the time, at least. And so I broke it up with cool things. That really helped me because it gave me a lot of inspiration to continue the work. Now, I also want to give you kind of, I don't know if it's a disclaimer, maybe we'll say, but I have to be honest with you. Connecting to your higher self isn't a novelty. It isn't something that you get excited about for 5 minutes and then you move on. To be completely fair, it's a lifestyle. And it's a very easy lifestyle as compared to the other types of lifestyles that people live out there. For example, alcohol and drugs and working every single day, all day long. There's a lot of different ways that we exhibit, life. But this is a lifestyle. And so when you start to connect to higher self, one of the things that you have to understand is that higher self is guiding you in your highest good path. And that guidance and highest good path sometimes will feel difficult. And the reason why it feels difficult isn't because it's wrong or bad or anything like that. It's because it's self-loving, and we're not really programmed to love ourselves the way that we should and the way that higher self wants of us. And in fact, talking to you about this right now, I'm actually getting quite emotional. And if I were to allow myself to cry, tears would pour right now. And the reason why this is getting emotional for me is because I see every single person watching this video's value, and everybody who I've talked to and everybody who I've done work with. I see all of the value in them, and they don't see it themselves. So I have to preface again that this course and anything that you do that relates to learning how to meet your higher self, it's a lifestyle. It's a relationship. And I guess I have to clarify that it's not with somebody else, it's with yourself. You're learning how to be with yourself. And it isn't something that you just want to do 1 day or 2 days or a small period of time and then move past it. You have to continue. You want to continue, I guess that's a better way of phrasing it, because we're always going to want to grow. And it's in that path with higher self that we get to grow. even in those times in which it feels difficult. And I'm going to tell you two stories of mine that are personal that are examples of the difficulty, but do it anyway. There's always been this saying, when someone says jump, you say how high. That's not accurate in this case. It's not how high, it's just do it. When you're guided to jump, you don't ask how high, you don't delay, you just jump. So I was living in California, and my sacrum, my tailbone, my that area down there would hurt constantly, as though I was sitting all day long. My sitting is increased here because I'm on Zoom calls more often now than I was back then. But I don't have pain now. So I was like, what's going on here? I don't understand what's going on here. And for 6 or so months, I was just sitting in this pain, thinking that I just need to get better pillows, or I bought all of these different, like, seats, that, like mats that you sit on your seat to cushion the seat. Nothing would work. Nothing. And I eventually came to this apparently resistance and delayed. You need to move. And I was like, okay, so let's get up, let's start walking. That wasn't it. I was actually being guided to move from California to Colorado, or in general, just move. But I chose Colorado. And I wouldn't hear that. I couldn't get that. I was resisting it. I was rejecting it. And every day, my tailbone would hurt so bad that I was thinking something was wrong with me. Get this interesting stuff. I moved. And the question that I had was like the jump how high part. He said, do it now. And I was like, moving across country is not a simple thing to do. Anyway, it worked out in my favor. And now that I've been here, I haven't had a single tailbone issue. One, not even one. The tailbone issue came from the fact that I wasn't listening, of course. But remember, this isn't a novelty. This is a way of living, and I wasn't doing it. And then the other one that I wanted to talk about is every guru out there. Trust me, I'm no guru, nor do I want to be a guru. I want to help you be a guru, your own guru. But every guru out there will give you these false promises of abundance. And I'm talking a lot of abundance. I'm not saying, oh, here's a quick $10,000 windfall one time and then you're done. I'm talking they promise you riches and fame. And I'm not saying you can't have that. But what I am saying is that you as a being are an immensely powerful creator. You create all the time. Honestly and sadly, it's usually in a negative perspective, but that's where we're conditioned. We do that often. But you can create very powerfully in the positive as well. And so I was working a normal job. I wouldn't say 9 to 5, and I was working from home. This was before COVID and everything, so it wasn't, normal to be working from home. But I was. And I wasn't supposed to anymore. And again, one of those scenarios where I wasn't listening. All of a sudden, I just got yelled at. It was literally like audible, like, hey, quit your job. And I'm like, I sat at my desk, my computer, and I was like, that's not possible. How do I quit my job and afford to live? I live in California, first and foremost. It's not easy to, like if I lived in, I don't know, say, Tennessee or Georgia, where it's a little bit more affordable, maybe. But I lived in California, and it wasn't something that you could just quit your job. If you don't have any savings, and I'm talking substantial, tens or twenties, $30,000 worth of savings, you don't just quit jobs. And I was like, nope, sorry, not happening. And I put my foot down. And then the next day, I thought about it for a second. I gave myself a day, and I was like, what's the worst that can happen? There's a lot of bad things that can happen, right? But I was like, has higher self ever led me down a wrong path before? And the answer is obviously no, it hasn't. I've never been led down a wrong path. And I was like, okay, then in that case, what's the worst that can happen? And I was thinking to myself, only good things, right? And so I said, you know what, let's do it. I quit my job. And the reason why I quit my job wasn't for the sake of quitting my job. It was for the sake of not being responsible to things like paying my rent or paying my car bill. That responsibility means obligation, which means limit, which means lack. And I was just not having it. Apparently, I wasn't supposed to have it anyway. And so I was like, you know what? Quit. And again, all the gurus out there will give you all of these false promises. Here's $1 million. I created $30 million in my first year. I'm not a millionaire, and I don't intend to be, but I intend to have what I need when I need it, and that works out every single time. And so I was supposed to take a year off, which I was like, that's a little iffy. I'm not sure, but I was supposed to take a year off, and literally by that day, something had happened and shifted in my reality where there was enough money deposited into my account that day to take the rest of the year off. Now I have to work again. I'm back to doing things, not work. I'm talking life purpose work, stuff that I do to support other people in this way, spiritually and stuff. I do work again. But now it's more fulfilling because that box had been removed that said I was responsible to my rent, or I was responsible to my car payment, or whatever obligation I may have had. And so the dynamics shifted completely. And before it was work. Now it's fulfillment. It's, I don't know. It's a little bit, it's like joy, I guess. I feel good doing it, and helping people connect kind of makes me, I don't know, giddy. I start to feel like I'm a high school again, like, oh, that's exciting. New person's connected to their higher self. But I wanted to finalize and kind of like reiterate one thing. This isn't a novelty. It's a way of life. And that's what I was describing in my two stories. Higher self said, quit my job. And I was like, nope, novelty. He said, quit. I did it. And it wasn't. It was a lifestyle change. My life grew, and in fact has been growing steadily over every month. So there's the kind of the story, the process, and kind of what to expect, I guess, without the whole promising millions. The reason why I can't say, oh, you'll get millions in the first day is because it's up to you. If you want to create that, you can. It's your business and your life. Mine wasn't, and I never wanted to. I do want to be comfortable, and I am comfortable, and I get what I want when I want it. It's not that I have, oh, let me look at my account and see $40 million. I don't have that, but I also don't want that or need it. That is in and of itself another obligation, keeping it. How do you keep that million when you got it or whatever? So I feel a lot more at ease, and before I was far as you can get from ease. Awesome.
Okay, so I just want to let you guys know that the link to the class, so Ben is actually talking about a class, and he has it, it's going to be down below, and it's a recorded class, correct? Sorry, we're muted. He's muted. So it's a recorded class, and it is not an expensive class, so it's very well worth it. And I've been getting a lot of interest in, I want to be able to do what you do. So if you really do, if this really sparks your, your inner work, like if this is what you want to be your inner work, then I would definitely go ahead and take that class, because right now the higher self is the safest and best connection that you can have outside of yourself, which, you're part of your higher self, but it's the best connection that you can get to really the true knowledge that you need to take you forward. So I just wanted to say that, and to let you guys know that, the information is there for you if you want it. Yeah. And to thank Ben.
No, I wanted to add one more thing before we move on to the next thing. And that one more thing is that this is a recorded class. And I myself am not really a fan of recorded classes. So I do have the capacity to offer this class live. But it's interesting because when you come to teaching live classes, the difficulty is there are enough people to do it. And so just kind of keep that in mind. And however you reach out to Honey here for whatever questions you have, just reach out and say, I prefer a live class. And if we have enough, I mean, I'd probably do it for 10 people, to be honest with y'all. If we have enough, then I'll schedule live classes as well. But as it stands right now, this class is recorded. And so there's the lack of the one-on-one, or the interaction, I guess I should say. But if there is enough interest, even 10 people, like I said, we'll schedule out a live one. And I'm gonna throw Honey under the bus here for a moment and be like, she'll probably be on that class with us too. I don't know. It's up to her.
Well, it wouldn't unmute, so sorry. But yes, I would be on that class. I really feel like it's very important right now. And I'm noticing in the chat, like I'm getting a lot of questions coming in. And I just wanted to say that I love the chat. I love what's going on. I love the questions that are in the comments, in the emails. But one thing is I am only one person. So as this grows, I'm not going to be able to answer as many of those questions. And I want you guys to be able to answer your own questions. So I think that the main thing is I'm here to inspire you to want to do this for yourself. And I'm really excited when somebody comes and says, look what I got. Look at my answer that I got. I asked, and maybe they were using the pendulum, or, they had had a dream. But to be able to tap into that all the time is just such a beautiful gift. And I want everybody to be able to experience that gift. So anyway, that's the story of the higher self. Did you want to say anything else, Ben? Okay. So I just want to thank you guys all for listening, and I really appreciate you. And I hope that this helps if that's what you're interested in doing. Okay. Have a beautiful day, and thank you, Ben.